To start with, you're just going to need a damp sponge, and you're also going to need the foundation of your choice. With the sponge, you can dampen it by running it under a tap and just wringing it out until it's just slightly damp. Or you could take any sort of face mist or water mist and just spray until the sponge is saturated. You don't want the sponge to be dripping, you just want it wet enough so it's bouncy and it's pliable when you use it on your face. I think it's best to start with the foundation on the back of your hand or on a palette so that you have more control over how much foundation you want to use, because you'll find with a damp sponge you don't need to use as much product because it spreads more evenly and smoothly. You can use the wider side of the sponge, whichever sponge you might be using. It doesn't have to be a beauty blender, but any sort of foam sponge. And you can use that side to place the foundation on. And then afterwards, you can also use that same side to stipple and blend it into your skin. So this is the bouncing motion that you see right now. Once you feel that you've placed enough foundation on your skin, you can now continue with the bouncing motion and continue with the blending motion to blend and press the foundation onto your skin. This is what creates that flawless finish that everyone wants to achieve with the sponge, and this is why people like to use the sponge and use it when it's damp as well, because you're just continuing to blend that foundation in and create a flawless base. Once you've achieved the finish that you're after, you can then go over the problem areas with your concealer. I just like to go underneath my eyes. I don't really like to go over any problem areas because I like to have the foundation do that for me instead. So you can also use the other side of the sponge to now blend the concealer. Just following the same principles you used earlier on when you were using your foundation on your skin, and just pat and bounce. This step is totally optional. I'm just highlighting this in this video just so people are aware of, if they wanted to do their highlighting and contouring routine, that they could also use the sponge for it as well. So you can just use one product for your whole face and you don't have to alternate between different sponges and different brushes. You can just leave it here and complete the foundation by now just setting it, or you can move on to contouring. Now you can use any contour product of your choice, be it a foundation of a darker shade or a contour cream, or you can just move straight onto a contour powder after you've set your foundation. But I'm using a contour cream and placing it on my finger, and then I'm going to blend it out with the sponge. Now we use the wider side of the sponge to blend out our foundation and the pointy side of the sponge to blend out our concealer. So now using the end of our sponge, or the edge of our sponge, to blend out our contour. We're trying to keep with the angles of our face using the different angles of the sponge. That's what they're there for. So depending on what sponge you have, you'll have to focus on the different angles of that sponge to the different angles of your face. Don't be afraid to go over the different angles of your face again with the different angles of the sponge until you're happy with the finish you've achieved. Once you're happy with all the liquid and cream products you've placed onto your face, you can now set your face with whatever powder you decide. If you feel confident or you have more than one sponge, you can use your other sponge in the same way with the cream products as with the powder products. So you can use the different edges and angles to place your contour powder with the sponge, your highlighting powder with the sponge, and your setting powder with the sponge. I don't suggest using the same sponge for cream and powder products, but if you have more than one sponge, feel free to use 2 sponges to do your face. So that's the completed foundation look with the Beauty Blender sponge or any sort of sponge equivalent. You can achieve this look with just one sponge or any other tools of your choice.